three of my friends and co-workers, Genevieve Fikes and Rodney McBride. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey,
Hello. Doing well.
Great,
doing
great.
good.
Thanks so much for being on our show today. So now, have you guys done these before? Genevieve,
I,
you did a whole show yourself one time.
yes, yeah, I have done one.
Did I give you more notice that time than I did today?
No, I don't think so.
Well, listen, how about you, Rodney?
I have not done one of these before.
You've done a lot of commenting on them though in the past. I appreciate it. You've put on links for people. You've done different stuff, answered questions for people. Now, can you guys explain? So, in case anybody doesn't know, Genevieve Fikes is a very accomplished lawyer. Been practicing for how long, Genevieve?
10 years.
10 years. Been practicing with me for 2 of those years. Rodney has been 4 or 5 years, Rodney?
4.
4 years as a litigation case manager, paralegal, and has really accomplished a lot at the firm. So can you guys tell me what you guys do at the firm? You guys are a team, you work together. Can you tell our watchers or our viewers what y'all do?
Sure. Ronnie, do you want to go first or you want me to?
I'll go first. Ironically, normally I go first. When we have new clients, I normally, first of all, try and set up their file, set up whatever they need, whether it be medical care, get in touch with their insurance company, what have you, and also make sure that they're introduced to Genevieve or Gary or both. And, generally try to take care of all of any needs they have, as well as getting all the medical bills, getting the medical records, writing summaries, that sort of thing, and getting it, sent to who it needs to go to, if it needs to go to a medical expert or to the claims adjuster or to the opposing counsel. And sometimes I get to draft really cool stuff and have Genevieve or Gary approve it.
And so I definitely need that help from Ronnie, and it's great. He does a wonderful job. So he gets everything rolling. Like you said, we can't really have a claim without medical records because we're personal injury lawyers. And it can be like pulling teeth to get those because companies change. I think they laid off their entire staff probably because of COVID. So you really have to stay on it. And that's something I really appreciate. And then, I like to obviously analyze the claim. Some claims are more simple than others. But occasionally, if we have a work comp claim and also a civil claim at the same time from the same accident, that can be interesting, or there might be insurance coverage issues. And really, so I oversee everything, and then we coordinate together on settlement demand. I usually talk to the adjusters, which, can be fun or frustrating. Some are better than others. And, I negotiate. And then in the event that the case doesn't settle, we go to court and litigation and do all that. Actually, I really enjoy jury trials, and I'm not sure when the next one will be. But, anything, once we file a lawsuit, take depositions, talk to witnesses, do a lot of stuff like that.
How do you guys interwork? How do you work with me? How do I interact with you?
Gary?
I'm smiling. This is not loaded.
Sometimes there are tough decisions that need to be made, and Gary does have more experience than I do, and occasionally there might be a situation where I feel like I might need to CYA, and so I'll get Gary's approval or guidance or strategy on how to take a course of action, just to make sure that he has the same opinion about how to go about it.
Yeah, he definitely has good guidance. We were just talking about it earlier. A lot of times I will actually get really caught up in the details of the case because that's a lot of what my job entails, and sometimes Gary will be like, hey, that's not necessarily the most important part right now. We need to focus on this, and so it's for me, I'm glad to have it because otherwise I'd be sitting here trying to finagle over pennies and 2 lines in a medical record that didn't come through or something.
So my answers to the first two questions are I see you guys working as a team collaboratively. Um, Sometimes the line is clear on what a lawyer does versus what a paralegal does. Sometimes it's not clear. And a lot of times I have paralegals who do great work doing lawyer type stuff. And Genevieve, sometimes you and I, as are we lawyers? Yeah, but are we sitting there doing depot summaries, medical summaries, typing letters ourselves? It's not that we're too proud of stuff. In fact, you do a lot of your own typing and your own stuff. I do too. So there sometimes those lines are, and then Rodney does a medical summary for this. I added to it or edited or this or that. So it really is collaborative in terms of those roles. We both are tasked with talking to the clients and moving the cases as well. In terms of how you relate with me, I think you guys relate great. We've worked together for a long time now. I was honored, Genevieve, to have you try a case with me about this time, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, where you were great, and I really enjoyed that experience. You're a great trial lawyer, and you really taught me some stuff, and and that was fun. I know you've tried cases on your own here as well as other places. And then the other thing I like is and I do have ideas about the cases. I say, hey, let's do this. Why not do this? Have you thought about this? That kind of stuff. And the other thing though is, as lawyers, sorry, I have something in my eye. As lawyers, one of the things that we find is that we work together better collaboratively. So I'll do an idea and then you'll change it a little bit and then I'll add to it and that kind of stuff. So through the Socratic method, or whatever you want to call it, as I reach for my glasses. So that inner working, and we have these conversations. What do you think about this? And Genevieve's like, yeah, I already did that 3 months ago. You missed it, but maybe you should do this, that kind of stuff. So I like that too about our working relationship.
I'll say one more thing too. I think that, Gary, you're great at taking the initiative of getting things going, whether it's, those class action cases, maybe some things that, we're still trying to get caught up on exactly how to do it. And then I can kind of look into the details, make sure that it's done the right way. Like we had to look into some advertising rules in every single state, and Gary's like, let's get this out, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. Let's make sure we're not being illegal in Texas. So I think we have a good working relationship there too, where Gary's got that initiative. And so, yeah.
I'm big on getting stuff out the door, sometimes to my chagrin, but I do, you don't want to make perfect the enemy of good, right? So, but at the same time, we also demand, I want to get to the questions people are asking because our list is filling up already, but let me ask you this. This is a good point. In terms of the quality of legal work that we put out, I have my own view of how good it is, but we battle big firms every day. People might think if you're a smaller firm or a smaller shop, the level of writing, research, analysis, results isn't on par with a 100-member firm. Can you guys address that and kind of the philosophy that I try to instill here about quality of work?
Absolutely. So, I said I've been practicing 10 years. My first 4 years was a personal injury firm, similar to this one. And then for 4 years after that, I worked for a really large nationwide defense firm. Don't hate me. And then came back to personal injury because that's what I love. But, at the personal injury firms, especially Gary's firm, you're given a lot of latitude to take the case and run with it. And you learn how to do every single step of the case and manage it on your own. Some of the big firms, you really aren't doing anything at all. I mean, it's just the named partners who want to be the face of it. And all you do is research and you never talk to the clients or witnesses or anything like that. But, so I think, that's a big difference doing personal injury law. And then as far as the quality of work goes, I think that really just comes down to how good of a lawyer you are and how much you care. And we all care a lot and we want to win. We want to do well. We want to make people happy. And if you have that kind of motivation, you're going to do a good job. So I think that helps.
Yeah,
the level of work we put out.
Yeah, I agree with Genevieve wholeheartedly. I think a lot of it comes down to how dedicated everyone here at Burger Law is, period, to being, good or the best at their job. And so everybody is trying to do, better than we did yesterday, better than we did last year. And then, regardless of the amount of people, you can't make people want to do better, I guess is the best way to put it. So they can have 100, they can have 20, but we have with our staff, I know literally everybody up and down cares so much about making sure that we do best by our clients that, and that's philosophy kind of starts from the top. So it's not really a problem of the quality of our work. And on top of which, we all, to piggyback off of what we were talking about a minute ago, we collaborate a lot where we go, hey, I drafted this, hey, do you have some of these? Do you have interrogatories in this kind of case that I could look at? Hey, should we maybe ask for this? And, between everybody and how much they work on it, I think we were consistently getting better just by all, communicating.
All right. And let me go to our first question, because it is Ask a Lawyer. The first question is for you, Genevieve. So do we also have fun here?
Yeah, we do.
Genevieve's told me, she said, yes, I will do this show with you, but you can't ask me anything about immunity. And so this is like a joke that I was trying to be funny. But just seriously, though, one of the things that we do is we do push the envelope in this firm on a variety of frontiers, one of which is immunity. And immunity is when the state has 11th Amendment of the federal Constitution immunity from certain types of claims, and sovereigns like the state of Missouri or the city of St. Louis waive their immunity under certain circumstances. We have had a high degree of success in winning immunity claims. We have one pending in the Missouri Supreme Court and one pending in the Missouri Court of Appeals now. But I really just throwing that issue out, and this really was a joke, Genevieve. But let me ask you this, Genevieve, big picture, where do you see immunity issues going with courts? Are they enforcing them more? Are they less? Is it fair? What do you think big picture wise?
I think that I'm optimistic that maybe the laws will change and there will be less protection and less immunity for the wrongdoers. And something that comes to mind are some of the police violence cases. Obviously, that's been a huge issue. And almost, at least in Missouri, and I think in Minnesota and many other places, you cannot sue a police officer for really anything having to do with their job. And so that accountability just isn't there. And there's been a lot of calls for reform. And again, every case needs to be a good, legitimate case, but there are times where there are good, legitimate cases and there's no recourse for our clients at all because the law says you can't sue, the police station or the police officer. So I think that might be changing. And then overall,
and I'll let you finish too, but did you know in the case that everybody asks about this case, because it's been pending before the Missouri Supreme Court, our class action for the Missouri Department of Corrections, an issue not appealed because it is black letter law, is that states, the state government does not have to comply with the Fair Labor Standard Act. And the state of Missouri, and no state is obligated by the state minimum wage and hour law. So the law in Missouri is that the state of Missouri can hire children and they do not have to pay minimum wage. There is no legal bar for minor employment, 40-hour work week, minimum wage. None of those are required under the law. You can't sue the state for that. Isn't that amazing? But you bring up a good point also about the police. That's really gotten a lot of attention lately. Anything else on that issue before I move on, Genevieve, because I did interrupt you?
No, just that, one of the other cases you mentioned in the Court of Appeals, another type of immunity involves employees who can't sue their employer. Their only avenue is workers' compensation. And, you have work comp cases where it is kind of the person's fault. Like maybe they literally cut off their own finger and, they're still entitled to compensation, but the company didn't do anything wrong. But then you have other cases where companies are taking guards off machinery and telling their employees to do dangerous things. And they're like hanging over boiling pots of water, just crazy things. And no matter how negligent they are, you can't sue them. But we tried, and we'll see what the Court of Appeals says.
I have another case, Genevieve, literally yesterday. I want to ask you guys in 2 questions. I want to ask you guys about favorite cases now, favorite clients. But I literally was on the phone yesterday with an opposing counsel where it is a thumb off case, and I told the other lawyer, do you know the saw that he was on? And he was a temp employee, so we're suing the place that was dangerous. I said, do you know they call that saw the grandfather? Because it's so old, it runs on pneumatic air and has no guards. I mean, how if you don't have liability for that, no one's going to change and places aren't going to get safer. So let me ask. I want to ask this question though, because we're kind of talking about how we work together. And before I leave that subject, I wanted to ask you guys. The 3 of us work as a team. Are there pro cons in having so many cooks in the kitchen? Do you want me to go first, or do you guys want to? Can I go first on that one? Because I let you guys go first on the other ones. The pros are that we get to work together. And the pro is that when we work together, we try not to be too many cooks in the kitchen. I do joke that I'm too controlling, but I mean, we put it on the table and make it a joke. And I say, listen, am I being too bossy on this? And sometimes you guys say, yeah, you are. And I try to back off. But at the same time, I try to balance the need to do that with, the supervise and work with you with the need to back you off and let you do your own deal. So we try to have cooks and assistant chefs, and those roles can change, but sometimes we're not clear. It's been especially challenging to me actually in this time of Corona, because I can't just stick my head in the door. I'm not around you guys 5 days a week and saying, hey, what do you, moving on this and that. So I've had some challenges in that. Cons as a team. Yeah, the con is that, sometimes I miss something in a case and I get in the way of you guys but I think we try to minimize the cons. But yeah, so I guess maybe the con probably is that if one of us comes in and tries to do something in a case where the other person's already been there and done that and already did it, and the other person just didn't know, that can be a little redundant. But sometimes redundancy is good. Go ahead, you guys. What are your thoughts? And this is free, open deal too.
I honestly don't really feel like there are any cons other than, again, just making sure everyone is up to speed on what's going on in the case. But I personally like having the insight and assistant, of Gary and Rodney. So, I like having my own cases to manage and run with, but it's also nice to be able to bounce something off somebody or get a new perspective.
Yeah. I don't know that again, aside from, sometimes when we're not everyone knows what all's already happened. I don't know of any particular cons. One of my favorite pros though is that there's always, I guess, an extra set of eyes to look over something. So in case maybe you missed something, or, maybe there was a detail that's super important that one person didn't see previously at any point, there's always, somebody else could come back behind and say, hey, did you see that, the other person was ticketed for driving recklessly or something like that? Just those kind of things, it's always good to have someone else who can look critically at, the same thing and maybe see it from a different perspective.
Why don't one of you guys have a take? What is a favorite case or a favorite client that you guys either you're working on now or that's recently settled or something that you guys could highlight that maybe may give some lessons for us on stuff?
can go first.
Okay.
Think about this.
So my favorite, I don't know if it was necessarily my favorite case, but my favorite client, we actually had to go to trial on his case, and he was very happy with us. But he would sometimes, because he worked downtown, he would sometimes on his break come stop by, say hi, grab a cup of coffee, just to see how we were doing, check on us, what have you. Yeah. A very nice guy, absolute, the sweetest dude in the world. And we're really happy for him. He was easily in my top 3 clients, just because that's always a fun thing to have somebody show up and just kind of give you I know you're doing a good job, look forward to going to trial, have a good day, like, hey, I like that a lot. I don't know, as far as cases, I like most of our cases. Almost all of them are interesting and have their own little nuances to them, and that's always fun. And I get to learn a lot of stuff. So that's my take on it.
Now that I think about this, this is an easy question, and it's the class action that Gary and I are working on. We really do work together on that one, and there is a lot of work, so it helps to split things up. And then sometimes we are dealing with challenging personalities of opposing counsel, and so we can cool each other down and we want to just go crazy, or fire each other up. But I really think that sometimes I'm like the bad cop and Gary's the good cop, which is kind of strange, but that happens too.
I'm usually my go-to suit is the bad cop. You're a tough lawyer, Genevieve. You're tough. You're fair, but tough. And we learn as we do this job longer as lawyers, we learn what the line is about fair and unfair advocacy on behalf of your clients. We always try to be on the correct side of that line. It can be aggravating when your opposition, either the client or the lawyer, crosses that line, and then we got to protect our clients against that. That's one of the things we do, is we try to equal the, some of it's a little trite, like balance the scales of justice or equal that, but it really is true that when you're representing these individuals who are going against big insurance companies, big companies like that, it's our power, our energy, our know-how, and our dedication, our zealous advocacy that that gives them the strength to stand up. And that's how it's been in American jurisprudence ever since our third president, John Adams, defended he tried the murder case for the Boston Tea Party, because those guys deserved it. It was a very unpopular thing, and he did it, but those people deserved a defense. So, okay, and then so what's my favorite case now? We are in the midst of we're finalizing the deal today. It'll be in my newsletter in a couple of weeks about resolving a labor case for some City of St. Louis water supervisors that are some of the hardest working guys. They're working overtime, 90 hours a week. It's crazy, and they're not getting paid time and a half for overtime. So we're fixing that, and we'll be happy to announce a joint resolution with that defendant soon. Let me move. So it's Ask a Lawyer. So let's keep asking the lawyers. Let me go to my next question. Why don't I ask? Well, we talked about this a little bit. Can we talk about this a little bit, Genevieve? How do you prepare either yourself and or a client for trial? What are some of the steps that you do? And then we'll go to Rodney for that, because I know Rodney has prepped trials too.
The main thing, obviously, for having a trial is you want to be prepared. You want to know everything in your case. You want to avoid surprises if you can. You want to keep out evidence that might hurt your client, or put in evidence that the other side has that will hurt their client. And so, literally some of the things we do for trial are motions in limine, where we try to exclude evidence. I'm trying to think of some examples off the top of my head, but if someone tests positive for marijuana. I've been on both sides of that motion where I'm trying to keep it out or keep it in, depending on which side I'm on. Or property damage. Sometimes I have a client who has serious injuries, but they're in a big truck and it doesn't look that damaged. And I think if the jury sees that picture, it might be prejudicial and they might assume they aren't hurt because of the picture. So then I do a motion to not let that picture in. Or I do a motion to let the picture in when there's a lot of damage. And so the judge has a lot of discretion on evidence, but that's something that's important. And then for the clients, you want them to feel comfortable. Most of the time they haven't been in court or been in front of people. And so it's helpful to go over what to expect. But then also we will act like we are the cross-examiners and we will go hard on our clients so that, they leave prep thinking that was awful, but then they have the trial and they're like, thank you so much. I'm so glad, you prepared me for that question. So, you want to know all the facts in your case and just be comfortable to go up there and try it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and Rodney, let me just touch on that and then we'll go to you, in a way, it's almost like asking, how do you build a building? There's so much that goes into a trial. You picked out some great examples, but it's the prep, it's all the litigation, it's getting everything ready and to go walk in there. It's, we take a lot of video depositions. We take a lot of stuff for trial. And then in trial, there's, I have trial punch lists. And I'll sit there and go, all right, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to do my voir dire. I'm going to pick the jury. I write my voir dire. What's the next thing I'm going to do? Well, actually, you're right. You hit the first thing. You're arguing motions in limine. And the reasons that this evidence, it should not come in sometimes. It's not like people think sometimes lawyers are playing tricks and stuff. We're not. It has to have foundational basis to come in. You can't walk in and say anything to in a court of law. There's rules of evidence. You can't say hearsay. There's things you can't do. Hearsay is another great example on motions in limine. Because it's unfair because you can't challenge that testimony. There's thresholds about when you can get evidence in of intoxication. And there's unless you have that evidence that you can't suggest it, you can't do that. And then during the trial, though, you're very right, Genevieve, you keep that even keel. Don't get too highs on the highs or low on the lows. Anyway, so there's a whole punch list of stuff there. But Rod, why don't you lend your thoughts?
For me to get ready for trial, normally what I want to make sure is we have everything organized, in order, a medical summary, make sure all the bills, we know not only how much they were charged, how much was paid, if anything was adjusted off, if we owe anything at the end of the trial, make sure we have like a little, working sheet of whatever we get, how much would likely flow out to each entity. And one of the big things for me is I will probably 9 million times, as some of our clients will tell you, I will ask them over and over again, email them, text them, are you sure you didn't see anybody else? You sure you didn't talk to anybody else? You sure you don't have any other pictures, anything like that, just to make sure there's not anything that, may be useful to us or vice versa may come back. Also, we make sure to look up everybody on, for things that may need to go into the motions in limine, look up everybody on CaseNet or, arrest records or anything that we need to make sure that our client doesn't have, that we want to have included, or vice versa, that we want to say if someone has a history of problematic driving, we want to, kind of maybe put that in there.
The last dep of a truck driver I did, and Facebook, social media, which is, we do that really well, Rodney. We do that. The last depot of a truck driver I did I tell you guys this, that his Facebook page, on one day it was, I don't give an F, and he spelled out the word, and whoever messes me I'll beat him up or something. And then the day after the truck crash, he changes Facebook. This is his profile, and the very first thing, the thing anybody can see, he changes it to something like, I'm a professional driver and I like my job. It was, what do you think? So let me go to another question. You know what? Boom. Let's do this. Since truck accidents usually involve large accident damages, how do you determine what a truck accident is worth seems like it would be tough to calculate. Can I go first on this one, because I've let you all take a couple turns in the first. So, in any accident, whenever the rule breaking of a defendant truck driver who, instead of driving a 6,000 pound car, is driving a 60,000 to 80,000 pound truck with a lot of inertia, can't brake as much, etc. When they break the rules of the road that are in the commercial driver's guide that I have a copy of somewhere, whenever they break those rules, they should be compensating someone for the damages just like anybody else. So up there. So when they have this, the Missouri commercial driver's license. So when they break those rules, and is what it is. It is what it is. When my sign just dropped, that's the thing you heard. But then after that, it's the same damages as any other case. It's whatever harm they caused needlessly because of the rule breaking, and then so I'm answering the question on damages and worth. And so and then the components are, and it's a little different with the damage instruction in Missouri and Illinois. Genevieve tried an Illinois case most recently in her trials and did a great job. I'm going to ask you, Genevieve, in a minute, what do you think of the difference in the damage instruction in Missouri versus Illinois? So that's your next question. To finish my answer on the truck it's what your wage loss damages are, past and future. It's what your medical expenses are, past and future. And it's what your pain and suffering, disability, disfigurement is, how this accident or this crash impacted your life. And that can run the gamut. So a tractor trailer can injure someone and not be that injured. It can also kill and severely injure people. So, but the other thing, though, is that sometimes in cases you see that a driver's negligence and bad action is as a result of a systemic failure in a trucking company. So if they're not policing their drivers, they're not drug testing, they're not making sure they're certified, they're not doing their hours of service logs, or over driving them, they're not teaching them the importance of courtesy and safe driving, they're pushing them to do deliveries in a hurry. There's all kinds of systemic problems you see in trucking companies. Just like any other industry, there's some good players and there's some not so good players. Yeah. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes the resulting crash or accident is a result of systemic type of issues. So that's my answer to that question. Let's see what you guys want to add on the truck crash question, and then we'll go to a damage instruction question to Genevieve.
The only thing I'd add with the truck driver question is that when you have a truck driver, you have a commercial vehicle that has usually at least $1 million worth of insurance coverage. So if you have someone who's seriously injured and their case is worth $1 million, that money is there. Whereas if you have somebody just as injured, but in someone just by a single car and they only have $25,000 of insurance coverage, then that might be all that you can get unless you have your own underinsured. So even though you could have a serious injury, how much money you can recover sometimes comes down to how much insurance is there.
Great answer. Great additional point. Rod?
I just think as far as truck accidents, I don't necessarily know the best way to establish their worth, but I think one of the bigger things that I have to remind people is if you're hurt, get medical care. A lot of people will, even hit by a truck, will kind of try and walk it off or say, I was just a little sore for a week, and then they go in and it's something, much bigger than just, a muscle spasm or what have you. So
can I ask you a separate question about that in a minute? You raise a really good point. Let me do this. I promised Genevieve this question. Let me answer this question. Let's throw it to Genevieve and Genevieve, I know the answer, so I can. I started first last time, so I'll add whatever. You go first on this one, and then Rod will come back to you on the point you raise.
So I do not have all these instructions in front of me, but I do like the Illinois jury instructions better on damages because they really break it down. It seems like in Missouri, you can get lost wages or future damages. But Illinois has like 8 different categories or something. I can't read it.
Sorry, it's 401.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know exactly where you're going with that one, but I do know that I like them way better and that they're more friendly, it seems like, to the plaintiff. The way that they describe, it's not just pain and suffering, it's loss of normal enjoyment of life and other different things like that, where it's more relatable, I would say.
Right. It's better written. And I, I did ambush you with that one. So, and I pulled out 401. I have all these, this stuff, and you do too, but it's all 401 in Missouri. All it says is that such sum as you will believe will fairly and justly compensated for any damages you believe plaintiff sustained or is reasonably certain to sustain in the future that was caused by the negligence. In Illinois, which is, what does that mean? I mean, that we spend a lot of time, and this Genevieve at trial, explaining what that means to the jury. But certainly in Illinois, the IPI, I think it's in the 30 range, right? Where the jury gets to sit there and get a little bit more education about that and explained about that. Like you get your medical damages, your wage loss damages, you get a loss of enjoyment of life or inability to lead your life before, you get pain and suffering. In death cases, you get grief and bereavement. In Missouri, you don't. So Illinois is more detailed and gives the jury more tools. I find especially in voir dire, when you're talking to prospective jurors, they all say, we don't know how to calculate this stuff. I don't know how to do this. And then we have to tell them, listen, we're going to tell you how to do it with the law and the instructions. And of all the instructions, I guess in Missouri, Missouri has great instructions, but I think certainly giving the jury more tangible basis on assessing that might be helpful. All right, Rod, let me ask you this. So I think someone asked this. Let me see. Tiffany. Well, Rodney, let me ask you this. Why is it important for a injured person to get continued medical treatment to address their injuries in a case?
Well, so a lot of times what we've had, and both of you have seen it, is where we'll have somebody and they were in an accident. And maybe they waited a week and then, they went to urgent care and then they were still hurting for a month and finally went to look at somebody and it's like, oh, you have a separated shoulder. What the insurance company is going to say is, hey, you went for a month and you had one doctor's appointment and they didn't even put you in a sling. They did, you said you were fine. If you don't have that continued care, they'll try and blame anything that could have possibly happened in your life. What do you do for work? Oh, do you drive a stick? Oh, do you have a young child you have to lift up and down? They'll try and blame anything else for that injury because you don't have a concise, I always like to say a line to draw where you can say, I was hurt. I went to the doctor. The doctor said it was this because of this, easy peasy. And every time you have a break, they want to try and blame anything else for whatever your continued pain was, which, we have fought many times to link it up. But at the same point, it's a lot easier if you were hurt, went to the doctor and the doctor said, yeah, no, you have a torn rotator cuff from the accident that happened, a week ago, as opposed to 3 months later.
Or 3 years later in some cases.
Yeah.
Jen, anything? Yeah, it's important to do that. And then, but people, life gets in the way, so you're working, you just had this happen and you're working and you're more worried about working than getting to the doctor, fitting that in your schedule or this or that. So that can happen. People also are challenged about how they're going to get paid, that those bills are going to get paid. But it's certainly something that's really important to get medical care right after an accident and to keep active and get the appropriate medical care. And you mentioned, the other thing is people just suck it up, say, oh, what had happened? What am I going to do? And they take ibuprofen for 3 months and it's not gone. And then they go back and they say, oh my gosh, I can't lift my arm. I got a rotator cuff or my neck still hurts or my arm is tingling or that kind of stuff. So that happens, as we know. Jen, anything to add on that?
I think also I mean, really just, it's important to get the care that you need. You know, we see a lot of head injuries lately, and a lot of times people might not know to go to a neurologist because treatment from a neurologist is very different than some sort of physical therapy. You know, they have cognitive therapy, eye movement therapy, speech therapy, all different things that you might not think of, but can be really, really helpful to get early on, just for your overall recovery.
Yeah, and you're bringing up issues in brain injuries, sometimes called traumatic brain injuries, or concussions also, or severe concussions. And I want to ask you a question, Genevieve, on that. But let me just say, you know, in those cases, some of the therapies I'm going to ask you about really help people. One of the challenges in a head injury is the people that have them sometimes don't appreciate their severity and don't see the impact. So we all the time go to the people around them and say, yeah, they don't remember anything. And I've given them the book to write stuff down in, and they forget to write stuff down in the book. Or they're having a mood disorder. They're a changed personality because of that. Or people can't handle stress if they have a brain injury. They can't dissipate the stress in their brain as well. Those mechanisms are gone, and they also have added stress and not being able to cognitively deal with it. So dealing with the stress of that. And so I've had many times of those delays in treatment. I literally have a case now where even a year, she got a bunch of treatment, she did a bunch of stuff, but she's sitting here 2 years later with similar symptoms. And we're like, well, you need some therapy, regardless of the case. You know what, you need to get better. And we always tell our clients on the medical side, take care of yourself first, get yourself healthy. Whether or not, we'll deal with it on the proof side and the bill side and all that. But Genevieve, to touch on that, what are some of the effective treatments and effective ways? Two questions that I'm going to dovetail to. What are some of the effective medical treatments that are important for someone with a head injury? Number one. And number two is, how can a lawyer assisting you with the brain injury claim help facilitate getting that treatment?
Well, I think number one, it's important to to your point that you just had, get a diagnosis and know whether or not what you're experiencing is normal or not normal. Because a lot of complaints, that my clients might have is that they can't remember things as well, or they lose their concentration. And, you can think, is this normal? Am I just getting older, or what's going on? And an insurance adjuster definitely won't believe you if you just say, I can't remember things as well, or I can't pay attention. You need to have a doctor saying that. But so the diagnosis is just really important, because without that, then you don't really know how to treat it. As far as the actual types of treatment, I haven't been through it myself, but there are something with the eyes. Do you know what to do with that? Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that, but I see eye movement training. And then there's just different memory, cognitive therapies, all tailored to whatever your issue might be. And, the other point that Gary was saying, we know neurologists, we have worked with neurologists before, and they're very great at what they do. And so a lot of people who are in accidents haven't been hurt before and might not know where to go, but we can set that up and, help coordinate the treatment so that our client can get the correct care and not have to worry about the medical bills or getting a bad opinion from the doctor or something like that.
And when you talk about, I want to ask you about, I want to go to you and Rodney in a minute, but when you're talking about coordinating care, all we would do is I had the conversation today. Do you have health insurance? Yeah. Call your primary care doctor, go see them, complain about whatever it is you have, and ask them if you can go to this kind of that kind of doctor. Most of the time when we're talking about coordinating care, we're not even picking providers and stuff. It's not some setup or anything. What we're doing is helping the client who's who we see this stuff, they don't, this is their only injury. We've seen 100 of these. We say, listen, you have this, and this, go to your primary, go to your this or that. Maybe you need a physical therapist. Maybe you need a chiropractor. These are other things you can do, and go figure out some providers you can do to get that. Turning to you, Rodney, what can a lawyer or paralegal generally, what can we do to expedite a claim? Why should a person come to us?
Well, I will say this, even to piggyback off of what we were just talking about with head injuries. We had a case a couple of years ago. I remember that Gary mediated where our client had a head injury, and they were, because he had a really technically proficient job, but he didn't miss a lot of work, and they were able to work with him with his schedule and what have you, and effectively say, hey, as long as you get the work done, it doesn't matter. So they were saying that he didn't have a wage loss claim, or he didn't have, mood injury or mood stabilization issues and what have you. And so, and again, Gary said, hey, we'll depose his wife. We'll, get, some of his performance records. We'll kind of show that, hey, look, he's not performing his tasks as well as he was before. His wife gave a deposition, was like, look, he's, less, he has less tolerance for dealing with our kids. He's less able to, deal with these sort of regular household stresses. And that, the offer in that case, probably from before depo to after, almost doubled, because we were able to say that, hey, look, this head injury is affecting his whole life, not just these medical bills.
His wife's depo was so moving. I think I was crying during it. She was such a kind woman and so heartfelt. And the amount of work that he did to get back to where he was, the therapy and the hard work that he did, and then he just gets criticized and say, you don't have a wage loss claim. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The miles that he walked to get back to where he was, that's way beyond your duty to mitigate your damages. So same question to you, Genevieve, and tell me if you already answered it, but more of a general way, what do lawyers and paralegals do for my case that I can't do for myself?
Again, insurance adjusters don't really care about the person who is injured, and the only leverage that we have is to threaten them basically with a lawsuit and the potential verdict that a jury might have that could be higher than what they want to pay. Because if you don't have a lawyer and you don't like their offer, they're going to say, all right, well, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing to really force them to make a better offer without that threat. That's just one aspect of it where we just see that insurance adjusters don't pay people without filing a claim. They just don't. But then after that, again, there's just getting the medical records, like I explained, can be difficult. We try to get those quickly and, write a cogent letter explaining everything that happened and why it's worth a lot of money, and just follow up on it. But it's one of those things where these adjusters will have any reason not to pay you a lot of money, and we need to pressure them as attorneys and say, look, we're not afraid to take this to trial if you're going to be unfair.
Thanks. I'm losing a little bit of your audio at the end, Genevieve.
Okay.
Sorry. Great points. And, us lawyers right away, we're making sure that there's a lot of mistakes you can make after your case. You're not taking pictures. You're not saving this. You're not going, Rodney and Genevieve talked already about going to the doctor in a timely way, in a continuous way. You're believing some of the BS that the adjusters may be giving you about comparative fault or what damage you can get, or how many times have we heard this? You can only treat with a chiropractor for a month and then you're not going to get paid anymore. Like, what? Who does that? I mean, that's so not true. I always say, listen, we'll file suit. You go find a doctor that says that, because none of that's true. It's a bunch of BS. So we do that, and we teach people a lot. I mean, so our clients are going to get 20 emails from us teaching them about different parts of their case and videos and that. And then I know Genevieve and Rodney, you guys both spend so much time talking to people, educating people, zoning in on the key parts about the case, because we can all be distracted by the side issues. And Rodney mentioned before about one of the things that I do in cases. We'll talk about a bunch of issues in the case. I'm like, yeah, but this is the deal. This is the issue. And one of the things you learn with the age that I have, in addition to my gray and my bow tie, is that you figure out what's the key shit in the case, and what do you got to focus on, what are the pressure points in order to ensure your client gets a maximum recovery. But you guys have learned a lot for that. I can tell you, Rodney, you're a lot different now than when you came in. You're like, Gary, here's the key stuff. And Genevieve, you already did that, but what have you learned a little bit more of that working with me? Or are you saying like, no, I already knew all that?
No, I think I definitely have, because I like to get into the weeds and into the details, but really, you have to get to the point also. So I think Gary's really good at that.
Thank you. I really wasn't fishing for that. All right, let's do some quick questions, because we got a lot of other questions that I think people have liked this little show here. Nope, I didn't want that one. Here, Maya asks, do you often run into situations where your client isn't truthful with you and you do find surprises later on? Honestly, I don't a lot. One of the things let me start with this one and then I'll run it to you guys. I don't a lot, because what we vet our clients. We have a sense of the case and what's going on. We try not to, we're not in the business to take cases where they're not fully supported by the facts and the evidence. What's the point of doing that? That's not worth. Our clients pay us for direct, clear information, and I'll sit and we talk the truth, and we'll sit there and tell them, listen, we can't do it because this, that, or that, or this is the problem in your case, et cetera. So we try to be very direct, because that's what people are paying us for good, accurate legal advice, and we try to give it. Let me turn it. Whose turn is it between Jen and Rod? I went to Genevieve first this time. Rod, let me go to you first. Do you often run into situations where your client isn't truthful with you, and do you find surprises later on? I'm sure sometimes we do.
Yeah, it happens sometimes, but it happens so infrequently that the times when it happens, it sticks with you. I do remember actually one of the first big cases here that I was assisting on. We had a client who went into a depot and was untruthful in the depot, and kind of everything kind of fell apart from there. But I mean, it's probably happened in the 4 years I've been here, maybe 4 times that I can remember, where it was like, we were going in with one theory and then it turned out it was, something entirely different because our client misled us. I mean, it's one thing if, people forget things, people may misremember. But if you ask me, I dunked on my friend. If you ask my friend, I never got close to the rim. But that's different than just straight up misrepresenting yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah. Jen?
In my 10 years, I only had one case that really stands out, and it was an intersection collision. And those are tricky because someone ran the red light, and it's usually he said, she said. We were able to get the red camera footage that clearly saw our potential client just barreling through the red light. And, this was within a month, I think, of doing the intake. So, we just sat him down and we're like, obviously we can't take your case. But that's only once in the entire 10 years, really.
Yep. Yeah, you could find some surprises later on. I have 2. But they are unusual. I had one, the most recent one it was shortly before the depot, and there was like 800 pages of medical records. Casey went through them, gave them to me, and she found a place where our client admitted he was drinking and then was positive for drinking. And he swore up and down no, and his dad was at the scene, and I don't want to talk too much about his dad was a law enforcement officer for forever and blah, blah, blah. So this was not on my radar. Anyway, we withdrew from we canceled the depot and withdrew from the case. Another case I had, who was a friend of mine, a friend of the firm, she had a slip and fall, and she said, there's water on the floor. There was nothing, no signs, no nothing. We got the security tape, just like your case, Genevieve. And it showed her with the picture of, and we took a still and we put it on we kept it because it was so unusual. It's her falling backwards and surrounding her are 3 cones showing wet floor sign. I mean, the big cones. They warned her. They had adequate warning. So we don't want to continue in claims where you find that to be true, and the client gets it. I mean, have we ever had a case where the client was like, "Oh yeah, no," they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry," and we don't want to be a firm that represent those kind of cases too. Genevieve, who's your favorite president?
Thomas Jefferson. I went to University of Virginia for my undergrad, which he established, and his quotes are everywhere. He lived there. He did a lot.
He designed the lawn.
Yeah. And so I know he's not perfect, but I think that he's done a lot for our country. I mean, he literally got half the country with the Louisiana Purchase, and then just did a lot philosophically, I think.
Rod?
I'm going to exclude recent presidents because we don't know how history will quite reflect on their actions quite yet. But I like Ike. Desegregated the military.
Segregated.
Yeah, desegregated the military. Set up the interstate system. What was it? Oversaw a lot of desegregation nationwide as well. Deployed the National Guard in places. Can't go wrong.
Got it. All right. Should I have a favorite? Should I say Joe Biden, or is that too soon? There's a lot of great presidents. As you're right. You look at them back differently in history with what they accomplish. There's a lot of those 1960s presidents, Kennedy and John. The amount of bills that Johnson signed and made law is astounding. The Civil Rights Act, the Housing Act, Anti-Discrimination Acts, all kinds of stuff. All right, so let me go to another. All right, so we have 2 more minutes. Let me see if there's any other great ones. Bob asked me, now that Lyda Krewson has announced her retirement, did she do that? Are you going to, Genevieve, are you going to move back to the city and run for mayor?
No, I do not want that job. It's tough. I think it's a tough job, no matter who has it, I think. But I don't know. I'd like to be a judge someday. That would be cool. But mayor, no. Especially during COVID.
Right. You know what? So we've done a thread. Just one last question. We've done a thread that I've really enjoyed in a group email among us today, where I asked everybody what they were grateful and thankful for. So that's my question to next week is Thanksgiving. What are we thankful for? Since I'm surprising you with the question, let me go ahead and answer it first to give you guys a minute. I am thankful. So I just did my newsletter. I just did a whole thing on gratitude and some of the things I'm thankful for Corona. Even in this Corona year, I really value the time that I've got to spend with my family. It's been a silver lining that I'm working home from on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and I get to go play with my kids at lunch or hang out with my wife or something. I'm grateful for the our firm in terms of a legal thing. Our firm really, I didn't know it at the time, but our firm had a lot of the systems we needed to operate well during the pandemic going into it in terms of a virtual way we manage stuff and how we communicate. But then I'm also grateful for the fact that we've changed a lot even during the pandemic and put in more processes and learned Zoom and learn these different ways and improve Filevine and trying to work on the way we communicate. So I have gratitude to both of you for how you've assisted in adapting to that. And you know what? We've had a heck of a year. We are helping a lot of people. We've settled a lot of cases. You guys have done an amazing job this year in resolving and getting great case results for clients. So I have a laundry list of stuff. I will turn it over to Genevieve. I'll go to you.
Again, back to the 10 years of working places. Some have been better than others, and I'm really grateful for this office. And I'm not trying to suck up, even though it sounds like it. But Gary truly is a great boss, both as a boss and as a lawyer and mentor. And and again, the work-life balance, very family oriented, and you don't find that very often. And also, again, gives me autonomy with things. So I definitely appreciate ending up where I am. And we're also fortunate that we
give me the $20 now, or do I give them?
Yeah. And then I think as far as COVID goes, I mean, we've been fortunate that we have been able to still operate and that our industry hasn't been impacted as much as, some other businesses, although not having jury trials is a little bit scary. But
Yeah.
Rodney?
Like I said, I'm very thankful for my family, my daughter, my old people, as I like to say, that, because I have been very blessed. I'm mid 30s, and all of my grandparents are still around. So, I'm very blessed in that regard. And then I'm very thankful for, my friends and my work family. And, again, not to to pile on the praise here, but Gary's been more than accommodating with COVID and arranging schedules around schools not being open and that sort of thing. And it's been it's been a real blessing in a time where life's been real chaotic, to know that Gary would have my back and have everybody's back, and on top of which everybody else also has done more than amazing of helping each other out. And so I'm thankful for, just like I said, the people that I have in my life right now.
Thank you. Well, you guys have risen to it for sure. I was just reflecting on that week, how much we've done as a firm together. Even though, because when you're myopically in it day to day, you don't see it. I don't see it. I need to step back and see it from the 10,000 foot view sometimes. All right. Well, hey, thanks for doing this show with no prep. And 2 minutes. And thanks for all your hard work this year. I'm going to sign off. Thanks very much to Rodney McBride and Genevieve Fikes for being our guest today on Ask a Lawyer. One of the things we do is we answer people's questions for free. So if you email us at info@burgerlaw.com, I will make Genevieve and Rodney answer your questions. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.